Hi, Craig here from the Bachelor Masters podcast. Do you watch the Bachelor shows ironically, like we do? Do you think critically about the socio-political ramifications of what occurs in the shows, like we do? If so, we're the podcast for you. We, the Bachelor Masters, combine deep dives into the show's problems with jokes and even some sound effects to deliver what we think is a well-rounded podcast you'll enjoy after every episode. So give us a listen, as ironically as you want, on your favorite podcast app. That's The Bachelor Masters, a bridge burner podcast.
Hey listeners, Rob here. Just wanted to let you know that this will be the final episode of our pre-Marvel series, and with that, Bill and I would like to celebrate. We have some big news coming and some bonus episodes in the next few weeks, so pay attention to our socials at Bill and Rob's. Follow Bill, follow Rob. Do everything you need to do because you are not going to want to miss this message. Very, very exciting stuff coming down the pike, and thank you for joining us for all of these episodes. It's only getting better, I promise.
Welcome to Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. I'm Bill Tilley.
And I am Rob Schulte, back at it again with the white vans. Remember that? Damn, Daniel. Am I the only one? Bill, it's our final episode of our Marvel Spectacular. What are we calling this? MCU Legends, isn't that correct?
I think we've called it a lot of things over the course of this run. It'll probably be up to the viewers and audience to pick one and remind us later when we have our convention someday down the road that, hey, remember when you did your series and it was called this? And we're going to be like all the other stars and go, no, man, I don't know what you're talking about. It's all blur.
Get a life.
We were calling it the Groovy Marvel Universe, and that's still what kind of sticks in my head, even though this goes well past the 70s at this point. But it is pretty groovy.
I think in the planning stages, it was groovy. Mm-hmm. And then once we realized we did one 70s Marvel movie, we were like, well, maybe it's... But regardless, it's everything pre-Iron Man.
Yes.
Not everything. Everything we've covered is pre-Iron Man, because you never know. We might go truly groovy in another Marvel series where we only do 70s Marvel projects.
I hope we do that at some point, because we didn't really get to all the fun movies that are out there for pre-MCU, and I am more than happy to sit down and talk about any of them at any time.
It is really difficult, but I think we should bring in our guest, because he'll probably have a lot to say about this, because he's covered some of the groovy universe himself. You remember this person from countless other Bill and Rob's episodes. The episodes when Bill was out on his honeymoon, where what did we watch? Passenger 57, or Baywatch Nights, season 1, episode 1. It's Joe Young. Hey, Joe.
Hey guys, how are you?
Welcome back. I am having a terrific year.
It's good to be back. You know, I'd like to point out that you could almost count this as part of the groovy universe, because there was that resurgence of the 70s and the 90s.
That's true. That is very true. I remember specifically an article in my 90s yearbook about the 70s fashion coming back. Okay, crickets on that one.
I'm sorry, I was locked into a sense memory of that fashion, having lived through it, and it kind of shut me down there for a second, Rob, so I had to reboot my systems.
Yeah, I remember specifically, like, the cool kid in school had he had an afro, and he had bell bottoms that he had made himself by like cutting the seams of the jeans and just sewing more material in there.
I think there was a cool kid in my school who did that, and he cut like his heart boxers into his bell bottoms.
Nice.
I wish you would have washed them first. Anyway, Bill, did you have bell bottoms? Did you make them yourself?
No, I never had bell bottoms. I was able to gracefully skip that as the son of a truck driver, but I did have plenty of tank tops and red denim slacks that I got to wear, and I did have a denim leisure suit that I have in a grade school picture.
Whoa. Yeah. I'm so jealous.
I don't remember if I had the chest hair then. I know I had too much of it in high school, so could go either way.
Perfect main cast star of today's episode to fit right in with that chest hair.
Yep, I got some. That's aspirational chest hair. I got no problem with that.
Joe, in your groovy Marvel world of piloting error, you guys had covered something similar to today's episode, but that was the Doctor Strange made-for-TV movie that ended up, retroactively being a made-for-TV movie, but it was supposed to be the pilot of a Doctor Strange show, right?
Yes, yeah. It's an absolute blast. It's about 15 minutes of interesting material, and then an hour and 15 minutes of filler.
Now, did you find... I've never seen it. I know you have, Bill, but... did you find it to be at all comic book related? Because when we watched the Captain America Reb Brown movie, it felt kind of comic booky, but very much was the suit and tie business owner villain type thing.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, it has the Morgana and Morgan Le Fay.
Morgan Le Fay. You're right, Joe.
And then like the astral plane demons. But it doesn't feel like that comic booky otherwise.
I agree with Joe. It feels those 15 minutes are the comic book, and even that is a stretch because Doctor Strange was a real hallucinogenic love story to LSD at best, even in the comic books, and it didn't really lean into that in its TV movie of the week. It's basically a lot of General Hospital and very little Doctor Strange, but it had an actor in Peter Hooton that had the perfect look for it. What a waste.
Man, he really did.
He did. He had prime mustache for Doctor Strange and the 70s. And it's just that, like you said, Rob, it fell into that poor trap of we can't afford Dormammu, so here is businessman evil number 2, and he's going to be your villain.
Aren't those the real villains, though?
It's true. It's very true. Somebody's got to finance those units that go out and do all those nefarious deeds. Those armies of ninjas and volcanoes don't pay for themselves. Let's just be clear about that.
Yeah, if we've learned one thing from Austin Powers, it's that you've got to diversify your business portfolio if you're going to run an evil empire.
Ironic. Today, we watched the 1998 telefilm Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D., starring David Hasselhoff. This is the first on-screen rendition of Nick Fury in any form that we've ever seen. So this is his introduction to the people through the television, and this is a big-time spy movie where Nick and the forces of S.H.I.E.L.D. go up against the evil of Hydra. And that's about all you need to know regarding this movie.
Yeah, everything else takes care of itself. But in case anyone wanted to know more, I will be reading the back of the VHS box here, straight from 1998, although this probably came out on VHS in 99, same year as Fight Club. We're all probably sitting at Blockbuster going, Fight Club or Nick Fury, I don't know.
Probably confusing the guy at the counter going, I'm sorry, you wanted to pre-order what now?
Here we go. Brace yourself for Nick Fury's action-packed adventure. Baywatch icon David Hasselhoff stars as the hard-boiled, cigar-chomping director of S.H.I.E.L.D, Strategic, Homeland, Intervention, Enforcement, and Logistics Division, an ultra-secret counterterrorism strike force. Fury is called upon when his latest nemesis, the sexy, sinister Viper, hatches a plan to annihilate all of Manhattan. Armed with a stockpile of high-tech weapons, Fury is the city's only hope in this full-length debut of this Marvel Comics hero. You know, Joe, last episode, Bill and I had watched Elektra, and we noticed in these late 90s, early 2000s, and hey, it probably happened in other eras as well, very much wanted to let you know who is sexy.
Oh, yeah.
In the descriptions.
They had to. How would you know otherwise? How would you know who to look up on Proto IMDb and find their entire filmography?
Who is sexy? I must know who's sexy in this movie.
This was before Mr. Skin.
Yeah.
He's still around.
Probably. He's probably financed by Amazon or somebody at this point. But.
I knew the guy. I once worked with the guy who wrote the Mr. Skin memoir, like with, you know, how there's always like the with this person author.
Wow.
Who boy. Oh,
wow,
boy.
The power behind Mr. Skin. This is a documentary that is just waiting to happen.
Do you guys remember that movie Knocked Up and how like Mr. Skin was like a through line for that movie?
Yes.
Like, how dated that is now.
I weirdly think about that every once in a while because it's such a stupid plot device. But they're like, yeah, we're going to build a website where we catalog every nude scene, and then they've never bothered to like see if anyone else has done that. Have no idea Mr. Skin exists.
Oh God. Well, speaking of Mr. Skin, this movie is starring David Hasselhoff himself.
Mr. Skin himself.
Bill, you want to run through this cast and crew for me?
Oh, more than anything, because I would like to go back and find some of the people and National Enquirers of the era, and just there's got to be some Nick Fury stuff in there that would be gold. So,
ooh,
starting out as our hero, Nick Fury, we do have the incomparable David Hasselhoff. He needs no introduction, especially if you live in Germany. He's been on your wall. He's been on your ground. You've probably got 9 of his albums in your house right now. We also have Lisa Rinna, who I'm sure Rob knows that name from his
familiar with
other hit podcast, Vanderpump Robs, and where he plays in the Beverly Hills Housewife sandbox. She plays Contessa Valentina de la Fontaine. Quite a name if you can wrap your tongue around it, in the words of Nick Fury. We also have Sandra Hess as Andrea von Strucker. Also Viper is her code name in this. She is the evil daughter of Baron von Strucker, Nick Fury's old nemesis, who we find as a popsicle at the beginning of this movie. And we have Gary Chalk as Timothy Dugan and the incomparable Ron Canada as Gabriel Jones.
A stacked cast. How could this be less than a perfect movie? I gotta say, you're right. Lisa Rinna, always a bit of a fire starter on Beverly Hills Housewives. I don't even watch a lot of Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, but knowing that all of that stuff creeps into all of the Bravo-verse, it's amazing to see her in anything that's not a reality TV show or a Depends commercial.
It's almost unsettling because when she's acting in this movie, if you've seen her in the Housewives show, her acting seems like a normal person, and her Housewives persona, which is supposed to be her real life persona, is somewhat unhinged.
A rich Beverly Hills person unhinged?
I know.
I never.
Shocking.
So, Joe, we'll start with you here. What is your relationship to Nick Fury? Did you read the comics? Do you have any knowledge of like S.H.I.E.L.D. or Nick Fury going into this?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I was a big comics person growing up. Marvel up until I was probably 13 or 14 was all I read. And then after that, got very into DC, specifically Vertigo. But
oh yeah.
Swamp Thing, #1 all time. Uh,
Oh, that Alan Moore Swamp Thing is wild.
it's the best ever.
When he pulls a sweet potato out of his chest.
Oh,
Oh my
amazing.
God.
Absolutely incredible. That's another like big acid trip ode. The
Oh,
entirety
yeah.
of Moore's.
You have to flip the book around in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And he grows his own hallucinogenics on his body.
Oh, yeah, because it's a hallucinogenic sweet potato.
Yeah, the Abby Arcane can tell you all about that. She knows how that stuff works.
What about you, Bill? What's your relationship to Mr. Fury?
I can lead off by showing you guys this. It's my homemade S.H.I.E.L.D. identification card for you viewers at home that you can't see.
Whoa.
Nice.
I love S.H.I.E.L.D. I love Nick Fury. I would read in the comics a lot. I had known Nick Fury from his Howling Commando days, which his original comic origin is he was a soldier in World War II, new Captain America back then. And actually, he's supposed to be a super soldier. He gets something called the Infinity Formula, which slows his aging. So that allowed him to show up later in the Marvel Universe. But I love that because it was James Bond meets superheroes. I love the idea of S.H.I.E.L.D. that there was this secret organization of humans who are pretty much just normal people with incredible skills trying to handle this wild world of superheroes. They had great tech. They had a flying aircraft carrier, for Pete's sake.
Yeah.
What's not to love about this? So I am very well steeped in, and I had the entire run of the 90s Nick Fury, all the flips and flops over the years that they've done. I loved it. I think it's a great character, and it's just a great concept to stick in a superhero world. So I am deep in for S.H.I.E.L.D.
Oh yeah.
Me, I didn't really know anything about Nick Fury. The only comics I pretty much read were X-Men and Spawn, and I think I really only had Spawn. I'm not sure how much of Spawn I actually read in my youth. And then if I'm going to be even more honest, it's all about honesty here, Bill. In the final episode of our MCU Legends series, I think I collected comics and read about half of them. I would probably be much more educated if I would have done more than look at the pictures in my youth. But goddamn, that X-Men cartoon. I loved it.
Oh, amazing. Still holds up.
So yeah, I didn't really know Nick Fury until, like Sam Jackson, I guess. And then it became more exciting because they'd actually put thought into these movies in a grand scale.
Right.
Not that this movie isn't grand. It's just, it wouldn't have been a blip on my radar. I don't even remember this coming out, and I would have been the prime age to want to watch this. This would have been like my 8th or 9th grade year. Like, I would have loved this.
Joe, when was the first time that you saw this movie? Was it for this show?
It was for this show. I weirdly had never seen it. I remember I have an inkling that I had seen a commercial for it at some point, but I don't remember ever watching it. The Sam Jackson version is badass, but this is like it's like a comic book. It's like cheesy. It's full of quips. I think I might prefer this one.
It's, we've all said it, we're kind of marveled out, right? They're still fun. We're going to go see them, but like we've seen so much, and like so many Marvel movies are the same. Even though the stories are so fun, they're following the same sort of formulas they've done and visual effects and things like that. So we haven't gotten a Nick Fury film. We've gotten him assembling the team and coming in for his cameo or having the moment. And we get so much from so little with Sam Jackson as Nick Fury that I think he does an awesome job for the handful of minutes he's in each film. But I think it's tainted by the grandiosity of Disney's the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Whereas this standalone piece about a character named Nick Fury is like a circus. It's like, why is this guy in a mine at the beginning of this, hitting a sledgehammer against the wall, chomping on unlit cigar. Like, who the hell is this? Like, what?
What is he mining? He's chopping away at a supporting wall. What are you doing?
Who does he think he is?
And he's been hitting that spot for 5 years? What's up with that?
Yeah, that's exactly what I told Rob. He's literally just breaking the retaining wall.
So I guess in that, this Nick Fury intrigues me, but he is very one level, right? Like, this is him. It ain't changing. There's not much nuance. Whereas in MCU, we at least get like some peaks and troughs, I guess.
Yeah, that's really interesting because your take on it mirrors a lot about what I felt when I saw Sam Jackson as Nick Fury. Of course, he's a badass. He's different from the comic, but as they went along, my hope from the first time I saw Sam Jackson's Nick Fury was, he's going to be our through line through all of this. He's the human element. S.H.I.E.L.D. will be a background thing. They're really cool. They can play little parts here and there. He can kind of be the overarching, like the M from James Bond in a sense. And we don't get that. And that's my big problem. It's not that he's different. It's that they don't really do it other than his scene in Age of Ultron where he shows up with the helicarrier, which is really cool. He doesn't get to do a lot. And at least with Hasselhoff's Nick Fury, you get Nick Fury for the whole 90 minutes of this telefilm. There is no stopping him there. So if you could have crossed the elements of how much you get and brought that over and give us a lot more of that in the MCU, I'd have been a lot happier with what we got out of Sam Jackson.
Yeah, and not only do we get a whole lot of Hoff, we get robot Hoff.
Is that not one of the most horrifying things you've ever seen when they're assembling that life model decoy? It is disturbing.
Yeah, it's very off-putting. Did not care for that.
No, and it's creepy in the sense of the scene where they're putting it together it's really good. Like, it's not just a mannequin that's been from a store at Macy's that they've chopped up and just got close-ups of the inside of VCR guts, with the panel open. It's the skin is wet. They shove stuff up his nose and in his ears, and he's got those little plugs that you can't get off your computer to run the circuit boards. But it all works. It looks really creepy and weird.
Yeah.
It's almost if it's Hasselhoff with wires glued to him.
It's like Peter Gammons used to look when they would put him on screen at ESPN 10 years ago doing baseball. It's like, my God, is that the Crypt Keeper puppet, or is he still alive? It's that level of creepy.
Oh boy, I forgot about that.
Oh man. Speaking of Crypt Keeper, I've been, we're recording this around Halloween time, and boy, I've been hitting that Tales from the Crypt. Watched an episode the other day where Tim Curry played 3 different roles. It was uncomfortable, but I loved it. Anyway.
I gotta check that out. It's been a long time since I've seen Tales from the Crypt. It scared the ever-loving shit out of me as a kid.
You gotta go. You gotta check it out. I got them all on Plex, man.
All right, checking them out.
But not during this recording.
Yeah, not yet.
Bill, what are some of the major points of this movie that we must make sure the audience knows?
I think just the major points that you need to know about this movie is this is a spy movie. It's not so much a comic book movie, although it is comic booky. It really is a spy movie, and it's taken from a character who is a super spy in there. And I think they do themselves a favor by leaning into that really well as best they can.
Some bad guys, bad guy villains, bad woman villains, hijack some bombs. It's during that era of like, oh no, there's more than just explosion bombs. You can poison people with bombs too. And they point the bombs at Manhattan directly at the Twin Towers.
Directly at the postcard.
And we get that shot about 5 times in the movie.
Yeah, and isn't it fun when the idea of a mad virus raging through the world was a quaint idea? Just something that we threw into the movies all the time.
But, people were getting tired of atom bombs. We have to raise the stakes, as they say at the writer's table.
Well, this also came out like right after The Rock, so shooting a rocket full of poison was in vogue at the time.
I'm a Beatlemaniac. there's so much to take away from this film. Bill, should we start with our segment, What's Under the Mask?
Yeah, I think we should declassify some of this information. Rob, enter your S.H.I.E.L.D. ID now. I'll be
69696.
Boom. You're in.
All right. This is where we discuss any of the fun, shocking facts, trivia that we might have discovered while scouring archive.org or any other databases on the internet. One thing I think is fun, and it's a callback to a previous episode we had with Mr. Joe Young. As we learned in our Baywatch Nights episode when Joe provided us with a bit of a trivia game, Hasselhoff, this of course being his first Marvel excursion, his first toe-dipping experience, but he did come back into another Marvel movie, Guardians of the Galaxy, where he actually played himself. Found that to be very interesting.
Hey, it says something. He's a two-timer, man. You know, and not in the way you normally hear that. He's a two-time Marvel movie. That's awesome. That's one of those things that I'm always a little leery of when somebody who has been in something previously, like Chris Evans played Johnny Storm and then went to play Captain America. Not that those are the same as what we're talking about here, but give him credit. You know, he hit two different movies with two different super teams, so not a bad thing.
Bill, did you have any interesting facts? We can just go round robin.
Yeah, I did. I find it interesting that they were really banking on this movie a good bit. Hasselhoff was signed to do at least 5 additional TV movies of Nick Fury after this one. They really thought this was going to be, if not a TV series, a series of highly successful telefilms. And they were kind of hoping it would take off, and unfortunately it didn't quite hit the numbers that they wanted to. And I will honestly tell you, from thinking back to the time, it was pure luck that I saw this movie. It was not marketed well. It wasn't anything that you would have seen in the guides. It didn't show up in any of the trades or anything or you would see on the stands or anything. It just showed up one night, and I just happened to see it. So it's kind of sad because I weep for the Nick Fury sequels that we could have got as he went after the defrosted Baron von Strucker and his clearly insane daughter.
Oh, it would have been so fun. They never wrote this up in Wizard Magazine or anything?
If they did, I didn't know because because back then those things were expensive and you didn't get all those. I would like to go to the Internet Archive and see if Starlog did any kind of press for this, because whatever ratings it got, I guarantee it was me and those nerds who would have looked it up and watched it, because I think this could have really been something. It was so over the top. I mean, there's kind of an Austin Powers vibe at this. It might have carried it through back in the day, and if they could have really gotten this off the ground, especially with Hasselhoff and his scene change.
Well, and this is the same year, right? The first Austin Powers came out? Maybe the year after?
It should.
That sounds right.
Yeah, it should be right in that time frame.
Joe, any fun facts that you discovered about this movie?
Okay, so the director of this movie is George T. Miller, not to be confused with the other George Miller. This guy is also Australian, somehow. But the year before this, he directed another over-the-top
I don't
film.
want you to feel awkward, Joe. But I thought this was directed by Rod Hardy.
Oh, shit. You're right. Damn it. I'm extremely embarrassed right now.
Do not tell him that you did this if you go to his meet and greet at some Comic-Con somewhere. Don't lead with this story.
No. You're not going to get an autograph on an 8x10 B&W headshot.
Very bizarre. How did I end up on this bit of information?
I don't know, but I would like to know what you were going to say. Can we just use that as your trivia?
Sure, why not? This guy who is associated with, what was his name, the director of this? Rod something?
Yeah, sure.
He directed Zeus and Roxanne the year before this. Which I don't know if you guys remember that movie, but it was about a dog and a dolphin that become good friends. Starring Steve Guttenberg.
Oh, God.
The
Goot.
The Goot.
The Goot, baby.
Oh, hail the Goot.
So here's something I found in the trivia section of IMDb, and it can't be real. This has to be something someone just wrote in there because it starts with the Hoff, and I'm just like, who wrote this? But it says the Hoff didn't want to wear an eye patch, and that ultimately he succumbed to wearing the eye patch because on the first day of filming, he showed up and had pink eye in one of his eyes. Now,
What?
the timing of that seems very on the nose. And then I also thought, like, maybe I'm living in a bubble, but when was the last time you ever heard of an adult, or anyone at that matter, who had pink eye? Of course, the letters are going to come in, and everyone has pink eye every other week. But
the adults who have pink eye league is going to blow you up, man.
Well, that's okay because this is not a WebMD sponsored podcast, so we are good to go. I don't have.
Well, I mean, all of the millennials who've been eating ass will be knocking at my door. I get pink eye every week because that's how sexually active I am.
I regret to inform you, but Piloting Error is sponsored by WebMD.
Oh, man. Bill, what else do you got for us?
I found out that the budget for this movie was $6 million. And at the
Holy
time,
shit.
in 1998, one of the largest ever that Fox put out for any kind of movie. And it goes back to showing, of course, they were banking on this. And I think they might have had some good reason because I found some interviews with Hasselhoff right around Sam Jackson's debut as Nick Fury in the MCU. And according to Hoff, he had the blessing of Avi Arad and Stan Lee. They called him, according to Hoff's own words, the ultimate Nick Fury. They loved his swagger. They loved his portrayal. And I think that might dispute the whole eye patch thing because I can't see him balking at the eye patch knowing that he's got to wear it.
He was in Baywatch Nights.
Yeah.
He'll wear an eye patch.
Yeah, he'll wear it. He would have worn it anywhere they told him to. He probably would have worn it in the middle of his forehead if he had to. That would have been great.
Yeah.
But he actually was very upset that this didn't go the way that he wanted to and has been vocal over the years as wanting to give Nick Fury another shot if he could, which I don't think that's ever going to happen in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, not possible anymore.
No, not possible anymore.
Oh, I mean, they did one What If cartoon on Disney, which was awesome. I'm waiting for the days where they do a whole What If Phase 1.
Well, they just brought all the Spider-Men back together, so
yeah,
DC's doing it as a money grab, so why not open that multiverse and give us our leather daddy Nick Fury one more time? Why not?
And our leather mommy Lisa Rinna.
What is the deal? Like, did she go to a special quartermaster to get her custom low-cut flight suit that she's wearing in that episode?
Well, Bill, this might be the perfect time to move on to our next segment called Suit Up.
Let's go with our guest, Joe. Joe, was there anything about this movie, about the look of it or execution of it that jumped out to you on your watch?
Yeah, the costuming was pretty damn spot on. Like the weird German Baron von Struckland's daughter, whose name I will not try to pronounce.
Viper?
Yes, Viper. Yeah, spot on for a villain. Hasselhoff, that is like the quintessential being a spy in the 1990s and also a superhero, like outfit. He looks good. He just looks so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, their walk to camera scene when they're getting ready to take off for their big mission is, wow. It is the stuff of legend as they go down that hallway. They dropped it right in the movie. It is no lead up. It's almost like you just suddenly watch another 5 seconds of another movie and then come back to this movie.
Absolutely. Yeah. I kind of am with you, Joe. The only thing I'll add on that is that like everything looked real. Even like the floating aircraft carrier. Yeah, it kind of looked like PlayStation 2 graphics, but it looked
Sure.
It
But it
fit
looked good.
what was going in this movie. Like it's one of those things where it's like something can look bad, but if everything is the same level of bad, then it's accepted, you know? And
Yeah.
I felt like their clothing was great. They had kind of the X-Men leather effect,
Yeah.
but you know, they were spies and they had to have, you know, protective clothing, and the soldiers wore fatigues and the businessmen wore suits, you know, like it all worked.
Oh, also, I don't know if they're in the comics in any capacity. Maybe Bill could speak to this, but the like guys that are like painted white with sunglasses wearing suits, that was creepy. It reminded me of that show Fringe, kind of.
I was trying to put my finger on it, and I just couldn't figure out what was a good analogy for him. It was kind of like, I don't know, Daft Punk sort of meets the Blue Man Group, meets the Robert Palmer video, except instead of the girls, you've got these dudes. I don't really know what they're supposed to be. I don't recall them from the comics. Mostly Hydra. Their minions run around in these kind of weird green and yellow jumpsuits, which were very comic booky, which I guess they would have vetoed immediately. So the fact that the half of them are dressed like SWAT team members with leg stockings pulled over their face, probably maybe because they only had 3 extras and they just didn't want you to visually identify him as he came on screen.
I'll tell you this. They used to look good to me, but now I find them simply irresistible.
Simply unsettling is what they were. And I'm like, are these dudes dead? Are they zombies? Are they just really in need of some melanin and a trip to the Cancun beach? Are they robots? What were they? There was no real explanation for any of that. And they really kind of threw me off in this movie, which is supposed to be over the top. They were just a little too over the top. Although, yes, Rob, you're right. They're spectacularly dressed.
What do you got, Bill?
This film is great. It really pulls from the source material. It's not 100% accurate, and that's fine. But all the characters are characters in the books. A lot of the characters like Dum Dum Dugan and Gabriel are supposed to be Nick's old unit from World War II. So they're played as different people. And Dum Dum Dugan is supposed to be like 6 foot tall with a bowler hat and a big red mustache. Kind of like Popeye meets Sheamus from the WWE kind of look about him. But that's okay because the characters are there. And every one of them, Viper, Baron von Strucker, the Helicarrier, Pierce, Bishop, they're all there. And so it's great that they just went, look, we're just going to make a 90-minute episode of this comic. It's a spy version, heavy on the tech. Let's go. And they did great. They did a really good job with what they had. Yeah, we get a couple of scenes of, warehouse setup that's used for 3 or 4 different bases, which is kind of strange. And even Clay Quartermain at the beginning of this show is a character from the book, but he's used a little weird here. He's got a bit of an exposition problem, I think, when he first comes on screen, where he just starts talking to this lowly private as if it doesn't see what's going on around him, so he has to describe everything he's looking at. There's the Mad Baron frozen in his coffin, and aren't we glad? And then he just
last of the Universal Boogeymen.
Last of the great expositionists when he takes a bullet to the gut. And then for some reason, as they storm the base, which can either of you people explain to me why they never secure the dare ducting system in secret bases? Why isn't there some kind of alarm or any kind of fail safe for any of that? They always just throw that big old bomb of gas in there and it takes out everybody.
They were too focused on trying to make sure that everything was done in Greenwich Mean Time.
I think so. And then they hit the base, which is great. I mean, this movie starts with action. I love the drumming score as they fly over and head out for Trinity Base. It really hits fast. There's helicopters coming in. There's troops coming in. And then there's Clay and when he comes up off to do his last stand, I'm like, you couldn't find a machine gun on your way to take out some bad guys? You got to just do that with your handgun, huh? Okay. But his let us rock and let us roll cry of death is just fantastic. So I love it. I love the whole look of it. Except the only thing I really just can't forgive about this movie is just that bit with the dudes in the white, the weird zombie guys. Take that away, movie.
Yeah.
Release the Bill Tilley cut.
Yeah, no kidding. I would watch any Marvel movie that was like, Bill, I don't think you're the director. I think you're like the person who gives the green light. So if anyone comes to you with anything else, like, we're thinking of changing the script to this. No.
I want that buzzer job so bad. I would love to sit in a room all day long and just have people come in and say those things and me just say, no, yes, no, stop.
So now's the time where we move on to the next segment, hero or villain. We pick one hero, we pick one villain for the movie. Joe, you can go last so that you can use what Bill and I inform you of to maybe help with your decision. Bill, why don't you go first with give me your hero, then give me your villain.
My hero is the hero of this movie for me. It is Hasselhoff all the way. He is the linchpin that gets this thing off the ground. Now, I'm going to say there are a lot of other actors, I'm sure, that could have played this part and could have probably done it better when you get down to it. But he's the one we got, and honestly, he's got the look. He's tall, he's good looking, he's athletic. He visually looks a lot like the Nick Fury from the comic books. Once you see it, it's one of those things where, of course, he's been other things, and when you see his name come up on screen, you're kind of an automatic like, oh no. But then, oh yeah, he does look like Nick Fury. So he chews it up. He overacts in some places really hard, and I know that's not saying a lot when you say that about David Hasselhoff. And the only other thing that I wish somebody had done was to have cut all of his running scenes out of the movie, because I love the man, but unless you put him in slow motion, he runs like my crazy cat across the floor. He's got a real kind of herky-jerky way about him when he gets excited, to where his movements become really kind of stiff and animated.
He's a lanky man.
He is. And I'm watching this movie last night with that cat in the room, and that cat's watching it, and every time the cat moved his head, Hasselhoff moved his head. And I was like, oh, yeah, I was right about this. But he carries it. He puts his all into it, and he gives us a real comic booky, but yet believable for him in this movie performance. So he is definitely my hero.
And who's your villain?
Oh, well, that's going to be Tom McBeath as General Jack Pincer. Good God, do I hate this man and this character. They have got to do the trope, of course, of the somewhere above him boss who is just not a real person in real life. These just aren't people you meet. He has an entourage of 4, of which I like one old guy and a couple of young people who apparently are just sewn to his suit and follow him around and just nod when he nods and move when he moves. But he's too over the top in a movie that is completely over the top. But his acting is just screaming at camera, and just like he went out of his way to just be obnoxious and annoying at every turn. And instead of being, somebody who could have been just believed that they were right about what they were doing, he has to be kind of the villain amongst the good guy organization, the authority figure that Nick has to rebel against no matter what. But I could have done with about 25% of him in this movie. Every time he comes on screen, he just takes me out of it, just like anything else. And he could almost just look to camera and just grin, and it would be less intrusive than what his acting is. So he just needs to go away.
Well, pop quiz, did you like him better in this or in Aliens versus Predator Requiem?
Oh, well, it's to say that you like anything about Aliens versus Predator Requiem is almost heresy, Rob. But
true. Okay. Yeah. Well, moving on then, I'll tell you that my hero was Lisa Rinna, mainly because of what we talked about before, that she is a real person in this, in a very unreal movie. But her approach was very comic booky. Her line delivery was such it it was a different time. We loved each other, but love goes away. You know, that sort of thing. Like, it was so over the top that it felt real in comparison to Housewives, where everything feels calculated and scripted and everything's a high drama moment. My villain is honestly the whole Von Strucker family, because they were too villainous. Obviously they took all of their accent class. I'm assuming that all of their accents came from like Looney Tunes commercial or cartoons. Looney Tunes cartoons.
What were they supposed to be? What were those accents?
It was very Boris and Natasha.
Yeah.
Let's just put it that way.
I almost wish that they had just said they come from Bad Guilevania.
Or wherever. Where's Dr. Doom from?
Latveria. Yeah,
Latveria. They might as well have been Latverian.
Sure.
I would have bought it that way. What about you, Joe? Who's your hero? Who's your villain?
Well, you know, the main hero for me is obviously Hasselhoff, but my second hero of this is Ron Canada as Gabriel Jones.
Yes.
Ron Canada is just such a fucking phenomenal actor. Anything that he's in, he's fantastic. I love to watch him, and I love to listen to him talk.
He is wonderful. I co-sign that one.
You really buy Ron Canada and his role in this movie as the scientist guy. Everything he does, spot on, not too much gravitas, just matter of fact, but with real sincerity in the role.
Yes.
You really want him to be the guy in charge of your well-being if you're going to be out here firing bullets that have electric blowback if you're handling the gun wrong. You want him on your side.
Oh, man. I am right there with you guys, because Ron Canada just brings a gravitas that you would think couldn't match Hasselhoff, but it does.
Good balance.
Has he been in any other MCU movies? I feel like he has.
I'm going to Google it real quick while, Joe, you tell us your villain.
Villain, obviously, Sandra Hess is Andrea Van Strucker / Viper. The way she just absolutely fools his ass. She's like, hey, we got to go over here so that I can tell you something. And he falls for it. It's so villainous and mean and just evil.
Well,
Great.
this
The
is
kiss
a
of
woman.
death.
Yeah, I mean, this is a woman who clearly has an orgasm when she shoots somebody cold-blooded in the middle of their bad guy Zoom meeting. So watching this movie once again, you know, they predict Zoom. This is great. Although I really think we should have alphanumeric scrolling boards under us as we do these, just like their lieutenants did. That would be awesome. But Joe, did you just love the fact that they gave her that giant red Coke nail on the one finger?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, that's not going to give it away when she's in disguise as Inspector Runster. You think that's part of, like, Interpol's didn't have a problem with your giant 4.5 inch long red pinky nail that you got going on there, Viper?
Good gravy.
It is madness. But she does have a great laugh walk away from camera. It is just something to behold. If you don't watch this movie for anything else, watch just anything she's in and just marvel at her laugh. She had to practice that somewhere. In a dark room in front of a full-length mirror. That's all I can think.
I think people should watch this. I mean, I watched it twice and I did not hate it either time.
I also watched it twice. Once with Bill on his wedding weekend, and which pretty much forced me to actually have to watch it again because we wouldn't stop like cracking jokes the whole time. Yeah. But this leads us into it's the perfect segue to our next segment, our second to last segment, if you guys can believe it. Splash panel. If you had to show a scene of this film to someone to get them to watch the movie, which scene from the movie do you show them, Joe?
Ooh, it's got to be the showdown with Von Strucker where he fools her with the life decoy model or what? It's an LDM, right? Where he fools her and she looks up and he's just sitting on a giant cog. And he looks at her and explains what's going on.
Oh, that's so good. What about you, Bill?
Joe got mine. We're in total agreement. I think the fight scene is great. It really is his moment to shine, even though technically it's not Nick Fury doing the fighting. The only thing I would do is I would take a small bit of artistic license and I would splice in the part where he looks up and the helicarrier comes over top, because I think that would be the perfect mix of action, especially when you're watching David Hasselhoff fight a 107-pound blonde who is clearly giving him the business in this clip. And then have a giant floating aircraft carrier on 4 giant hair dryers circling over, about to send down your strike rescue force. Yeah, I'm not going to have a hard time picking that movie up off the VHS rack and walking right up to the counter and renting it.
Guys, it's so interesting that you both have that same scene, because ever since the first time I watched this movie on Bill's wedding weekend with Bill in his living room, he had more important things to be doing, but for some reason we put this on.
I don't know.
Wait, did we watch this the day of your wedding?
Yeah, we were killing time before actually went off to go get married.
No, it wasn't killing time. It was very important that we watched there. There was 2 important things to do that day, and one was watching Nick Fury.
Honestly, if you're about to get married, I recommend it. Put on Nick Fury, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. before your wedding. It'll really help you handle it.
It's true. That's true. Yeah. Since that day, I was like, all Bill needed to do to get me to watch this movie, of course I'll watch anything Bill suggests, but is the life decoy scene when they show it for the first time. Like, to me, it's like the whole, like, we're in S.H.I.E.L.D. He's just shot a gun in an elevator to unlock the door, and that's security. Okay, great. You can come on through. And then they're like, look at all these cool gadgets we have. Like this robot of you that we just had, even though you only just agreed to come back to S.H.I.E.L.D.
That's my thinking too, Rob. Why are you building a robot of your boss who's been gone for 5 years? This is the question I would be asking if I was Nick Fury.
Yeah, it was awesome. I very much love it, and I think it lets you know exactly what this movie is. But speaking of what this movie is and what this movie isn't, is it good? What are our final thoughts? Let's head over to the Marvel mailbag. Bill, you generally have a lot of strong feelings for things that you have held close to your heart. So I want you to go last on this one. And I think you'll be able to cap us off with some of the things Joe and I will say. Joe, I will go first, and you'll get sandwiched right in the middle of this PB&J sandwich. I'm going to keep it short and sweet, guys.
More like an RB&J sandwich.
Wow.
Trademark.
We got the meats. Guys, I'm so happy we ended this series with this film. There have been hits, misses, but every episode has been fun. And like we stated earlier in this episode, there's going to have to be a, like, before the MCU part 2, a groovy universe, truly, or a only 90s or an only 80s Marvel series. But Bill and I, hunted and pecked at, like, what is kind of the broad strokes of pre-Marvel, like what really, like, built upon the next thing in no particular order to create the MCU. And this coming at the end is great because I could see in a different world us holding off and putting, like, Blade as our final movie, or Howard the Duck, or one of these other, like, more talked about films. But the fact that, like, I think there's a strong amount of people out there who do not even know this film exists. And I think it is an important Marvel film for everything we've said earlier, but also the fact that Fox was able to give out $6 million, which is not much money in grand movie making terms, but huge money for a television show pilot, essentially, made for TV movie with big names. Like, these are big names for the time and for TV. And they did it well. They told a Nick Fury spy movie story without taking that many liberties away from the comic, which at the time, a lot of things were like, oh, that's silly in the comic book. Let's change it to this instead. Biological web shooters and all of that. Mere years later. But I liked this. I think it was fun. And, what we like to do at the tail end of our mailbags is give our hammer time, which is the film worthy of the superhero it's about? Does it lift the hammer high or drop the hammer of our expectations? And this movie lifts that hammer, I think. Joe, how about you?
It's like perfectly tongue-in-cheek. It's like winking at the audience in such a fun way. I very much enjoyed it. I was surprised as much as I enjoyed it because, boy, oh boy, a lot of the TV pilots that I have watched are just absolutely rottenness. But it's just fun. The plot is fun. The idea that Nick Fury would get suckered into being poisoned with tree frog poison and be running this fever the entire, just like, no, there's no cure. There's no cure. Wait, unless she's immune, we've got to get her blood.
Yes.
And then just that her father is frozen and they're just keeping the body in a big tube that leads to the center of the earth? Like where does that tube lead to?
Don't know.
That they escape at the end.
You don't need to, some things you just don't need to know, Joe.
Well, he says she's halfway to China by now. It's like, what?
That is like a very 1960s I've dug a hole joke.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, especially since the elevator can only be like 8 feet away from him at that point. Like, he could have jumped in there and still got her.
Yeah.
No way it's going that fast.
I love the running gag of him just shooting open doors. And then it finally doesn't work at the end.
How many of us have not wanted to do that when we're stuck somewhere? It's just, we've seen it 1,000 times.
Oh boy.
I'm not advocating that, audience. Please don't go to your work tomorrow, pull out a Glock and take out your elevator because it's not moving fast enough. I am not telling you to do that.
No. But Joe, do you think this is worthy of lifting Mjolnir?
I think so. I think that it's a lot of fun. I think that it's worthy of Nick Fury. Definitely, I recommend people watch it.
Yeah, that's all you want out of a movie.
Yeah.
What are we watching these things for, right? Bill, bring it on, baby.
I am so glad that we ended this series with this movie. It was very important to me that this is how we ended with, because I will just tell you, in this series, pre-Marvel, pre-MCU, or MCU, put them all together, and the Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. movie is at the top of all of my Marvel movie experiences, new or old. It was great when I saw it. It's great now. And I've seen a lot of the reviews that came out back then, things they'll say now. It's cheesy. It has its slow moments. Well, of course it's cheesy. It's based on the comic book. They're supposed to be that way. But this movie goes to the core of why Rob and I are doing this show in the first place. It's that any movie, even a bad movie, can be fun if you share it with your friends. And is it bad because it's bad and nobody gave a crap? Or is it people giving that their all? And that's one of this movie is. These people clearly put a lot of effort into it. Nobody set out to make a bad movie on Nick Fury, and in my opinion, they didn't. The things that they tried it for, there are people that'll say, oh, there's moments where it moves too slow. Watch a James Bond movie. Is he shooting people every 5 minutes in those 2-hour movies? No.
Holy moly, over 2 hours. 2 hours, 45 minutes.
No, yeah, they're set up amongst those things. He has dialogues. You meet the characters. You learn about every one of these people in this 90-minute movie in a way that you sometimes don't in 28 hours worth of Marvel movies made today. Or in the case of like a Doctor Strange, which is a prime example of straying too far from the source material, you don't learn much of anything at all. It's just a little bit weird. So I think this movie is great. I just love it. I've seen the Nick Fury movie. I've read the books. It's very true to those things. And it's a great representation of that character. everything can be done better. Everything can be done differently with different actors. You could have a more realistic take. And I think that's kind of what we get with Sam Jackson on screen. But at the end of the day, this is what you built your dynasty on, is Nick Fury is an over-the-top super spy who chomps cigars, loves his liquor, runs around in flying cars, and fights weird ex-Nazi super scientist madmen. Of course it's cheesy, and it's fun. It is a ton of fun, and I will recommend this movie to anybody who wants to have a fun 90 minutes of Marvel action and just enjoy a movie that shows you how much fun a comic book movie can be. So this movie takes Mjolnir and doesn't just lift it, it flings it all the way up to that helicarrier and right on past it.
Hell yeah.
Here's the thing, Joe. Usually when we have a guest, Bill and I say, see you later, we'll record the credits afterwards. But what I would like to do is keep you on for our credits and everything, because afterwards, Bill and I are going to announce what our next series is, and I want your reaction on that, if you don't mind sticking around for a moment.
Shit. Absolutely.
Okay. So before we get to the actual thank yous, Bill, I want to remind everyone that the biggest thing they can do as an audience member is to send this podcast to a friend. Let them know that this is a lot of fun, and then to subscribe, because without that, we would be nothing. We'd like to thank our friends for listening to another series of this. They could also join our Discord. Links to that in the description, but there's also the Discord link in our Gumroad site, which is where you can give a one-time donation to help keep the lights on at this podcast. You can leave us a voicemail. Links in there too. You can also, just say, what up? And tweet at us at all of our various social media accounts, which can also be found in the show description. Now, Bill, who should we say thank you to?
We should say thank you to our support team that we have. If we are the agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., they are as well. When it comes to this podcast, we'd like to thank Jothan for his amazing show art that we have and we are able to share with all of you. It's great. I love it. I love it every time I see it. I'd like to thank Patrick for doing his editing duties, for getting in there and fighting through our audio and making us sound like me, the non-professional, and Rob, the actual professional that he is. Sounds great every week. Thank you so much. We'd like to thank Draxium and Dr. Z for our amazing tunes that are played for this show and our interstitials. It really makes the show come alive, and we can't thank you enough. Please check out their independent projects. They have band camps. Go out and search for them. They do great work. And
I got the links in the show notes.
Yes, and we'd also like to thank the Contessa of our team, if you will, the incomparable Mrs. Colombo, who QAs our episodes. She checks us and makes sure that Rob and I don't do anything that will get us put in a tube and frozen with our eyes open for some reason. And have those be itchy and dry for the rest of eternity. So we thank her very much for that. Keep us out of that tube, Mrs. Colombo. We need
for sure. Now, the moment everyone's been waiting for. We've done all of the Predator films, Bill. We've done our offhand, in-between season episodes before the MCU, which, hey, we're going to do that again. We got to give ourselves time to, we're not just going to go bam, bam, bam. There's a little break in between seasons with some extra little flair. But I won't delay any longer. I've made jokes about it in the past. People didn't know if I was being honest or not. But get this, Joe. Bill and I have decided to watch all of the Planet of the Apes films chronologically.
Holy smokes.
Yes. Now, I think that we need to watch the newer Planet of the Apes movies first, so that, they say how it all happened, and then jump to Charlton Heston, get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape, that series. So that we can fully understand chronologically, much like Predator, how our planet became so full of these wisecracking apes, Now, the question I have for you, though, is where do we watch Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes?
Oh, man. First? Do you watch it first? You might watch it first.
Ooh. Because that could inform, like, it would be a standalone. It would be like...
Yeah. It's such a train wreck. And I will tell you, I don't know if I've ever told you this story, Rob. I saw that movie in the theater at midnight on opening night. And at the end of the movie...
Don't tell Bill. Don't tell him what it is, because he hasn't seen it yet.
Oh, no, I've seen...
Well, I can't...
Oh, you have seen that one. I thought you haven't.
Okay.
I've seen most of that movie.
Okay.
Oh, I don't know if I can spoil this then.
No, you can't spoil any of the movies we watch, Joe. It has no impact on it whatsoever.
Joe, I know what you're talking about, but
yes. So at the very end, Mark Wahlberg crash lands, and a guy in the theater. It's showing the shot from behind Abraham Lincoln at the Lincoln Memorial, and this guy in the theater yells out, "I swear to God, if that guy has a monkey face, I am out of here." And it pans around, and that guy just goes, "Fuck this," and walks out of the theater. I mean, the movie was basically over, but
yeah.
Damn, man.
Oh my God. That is awesome. I'm going to carry that with me to the end of my days. And I just say I'll never get really an option to ever say this story ever, but one of the best, and this is secondhand, but I was going to go to a Dave Matthews concert my senior year of high school, and a TA I was friends with was like, "I love Dave Matthews, but here's the best Dave Matthews story I've ever had." And I could care less about Dave Matthews these days. That's not the point of this story. But he was at a Dave Matthews show, and they're in one of their 20-minute jam sessions, and some drunk guy next to this TA I know just shouts, "Fuck this jam shit. I want to hear what it sounds like on the CD."
That is absolutely incredible.
Wow.
Bill, do you have any thoughts about the ape planets before we unleash on our audience?
No, other than I look forward to this. It's been a long time since I've seen the latter ones, so it'll be fun to revisit the 60s.
Well, Joe, why don't you tell us about piloting error? And not that anyone in our audience doesn't already know, but just so they can make sure to go give it a listen. Do you have anything planned? At this point, you guys just ended your, third season?
Second season.
Okay.
We release very slowly. We release once a month, basically. It's, forgotten TV pilots that never got picked up. The last episode that we did was for Elvira, the Elvira TV pilot, which I kind of got convinced to like by our guest, Miguel Myers, who's just an absolute gem. Everyone should listen to his podcast, My Horror Confessional. It's absolutely wonderful podcast. Watched that. We're hopefully going to have Bill and Rob's on for an episode that may be related to their groovy Marvel universe.
Hopefully it's already out at this point. We record so far in the future that if you're hearing this, everyone, you'll have probably already known that Bill and I are on there, but we're not going to tell you what it is now, just in case.
No.
Well, Joe, thanks again for joining us, and thank you, audience, for listening through our incredible second season. Bill, it's been wonderful. Thanks again, buddy, for doing this podcast with me.
Thank you for offering it to me, Rob. It's great. I love watching these movies and then getting together with you to talk about them. And that's what everyone who listens to this and piloting error, which actually your Doctor Strange episode was a big reason for wanting to push to do these kind of movies. You guys do a great job over there. I listen to your shows and I really enjoy them. They are a lot of fun. And you have sent me down a pilot TV rabbit hole on YouTube that I'm not going to crawl out of anytime soon. Thanks a lot.
Oh, boy.
Just the idea of looking at those and watching a lot of things and going, well, I can't see why this didn't sell is actually a lot of fun. So appreciate that. And I look forward to going ape with you, Robs. I can't wait.
It's going to be a little bit... Well, we're just going to monkey around. Anyway, on that note, I will talk to everyone on the next episode of Bill and Rob's An Excellent Adventure. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.